Hello, welcome again to Fair Tax Power Radio. I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Ron Molero.
And we are the Fair Tax Guys. Thanking you for watching the program, inviting you to give us a share if you would, if you're watching this live, or give us a comment as well at the fairtaxguys@gmail.com, or leave us a note on our Facebook page.
Yep.
How's that?
Yep. And we, like we said last week, we finally wrapped up the slogan contest. We appreciate everybody who, made a submission and so forth. We get some great comments from people on Facebook. Mm-hmm. They send us emails to thefairtaxguys@gmail.com. In fact, there's a lot of places where we have to look for comments. And
indeed.
Sometimes it's a little confusing because I'll say, oh, that one fellow asked me a question. Now, where was that? Was that a text message? Was that on Facebook? Was that on the Fair Tax Guys Gmail account? So I have to go searching. But anyways, we appreciate the input from people. We really do. Sometimes it gives us some great ideas to do an episode.
Yep.
And
appreciate the shares and the word of mouth advertising and the folks that we're famous in Illinois with. How cool is that? Talked about that a little bit last week.
Yeah, and we talked about last week how we are the world famous Fair Tax Guys because our podcasts are being listened to in several countries around the world.
All right. Well, I want to get back onto our Congress.gov. I love checking out, see what the Congress critters are trying to do to us via the tax code. So if you go in there, you search on the string Internal Revenue Code, you get back 976 hits as of the date we're recording this one.
Yeah.
And this one caught my eye simply because of who wrote it. This is S2423. If you can figure this out, you win a dog biscuit. A bill to amend the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 for purposes of the tax on private foundation excess building holdings to treat as outstanding any employee-owned stock purchased by a business enterprise pursuant to certain employee stock ownership retirement plans. Now that came from the same lady who gave us the redefinition of municipal solid waste. That was Debbie Stabenow of Michigan. Well, so she wants to redefine municipal solid waste in the tax code.
She must be a civil engineer or something.
And wants to add this monstrosity, private tax foundation excess business holdings. I'm not going to go through all that again.
No, because we only have a half hour, Bob.
I didn't understand it the first time. I'm not going to understand it this time either. But that is the kind of garbage and gobbledygook that is in the tax. I do not envy Jade Wiley. He has to deal with this stuff on a regular basis. We just can point it out and make fun of it and laugh at it. But
by the time people are watching this program, there's probably going to be very close to 1,000 proposals to change the tax code. Here it is. We're only in August. We're not even halfway through the 116th Congress.
Unfortunately, they won't all become law. But as we mentioned last week, you never can tell how many changes are included in any of these bills. The Tax Cuts and Job Act that you referred to, 500 changes to the tax law in that one bill.
Oh, yeah.
So,
that was the one that was supposed to solve all the problems and simplify the tax code.
So we do this because we love to make fun of the IRS, and that's just fun to do. But there's a serious purpose behind this, too. We need to get rid of this stuff. We need to get rid of the IRS. We need to get rid of all these insane tax laws. We get to get rid of all this stuff that nobody can understand. And when you sign your tax return, you are testifying that you do understand it all.
Yeah.
And so it's the only way to get rid of it is to pass the fair tax.
Yeah.
Because the flat tax will not stay flat. The flat tax starts out like this. This is my 8x8 cube, and then it becomes this, and then it becomes this, and over time the flat tax becomes like Fat Albert here, my 11 by 11, which if we actually had this scale properly, it'd be 28 by 28, like 3 times this size to compare to the fair tax down there.
So, refresh people's memory on what these things represent.
These are my little visual props that we took to CPAC a couple of years ago. To the fair tax, if we really had a representation of the fair tax, it would be just a single, one little block of wood that doesn't turn.
Yeah.
This is the smallest Rubik's Cube made, the little 2x2 here. But in terms of the number of pages in the tax code versus the number of pieces in these things, you'd have to have one that's 28 by 28
by 28.
Yeah, 28's here, and that would be, so that would be the visual representation of how complex the income tax is versus the simplicity of the fair tax.
Yeah.
And of course, this is not a scale model. This one would have to be about 3 times bigger than it actually is to be up to scale. But that's what that is.
So that's what that represents, a great visual representation.
So if we ever go back to CPAC, I'm riding the auto train to get up there. I'm not riding in your car for 18 hours again.
All right.
But we're taking these with us. Absolutely. So if we end up going back to CPAC, we will announce it here on Fair Tax Power Radio. We'd like you to drop by and see us.
And of course, to manage something that complicated, or and realistically 28 by 28 by 28, you need an organization to enforce it.
Well, this one takes me an hour and a half to fix. I wonder how 28 and 28 would probably take about 3 days.
Well, we wouldn't be doing too much Fair Tax Power Radio because he'd be involved in that.
No, I tell you what. But thank you, Senator Stabenow, for another one of your wonderful tax code changes.
Yeah,
that's S2423.
But this reminds me of our Fair Tax slogan contest. I mean, our IRS slogan contest that we wrapped up last week. Okay, and you'll remember that the winner was Lance Sanders with
"We take more by 9 a.m. than most people make in a day."
I'm from the IRS and I'm here to help.
We need to have a plaque of that up on our wall back there that says.
Oh yeah, maybe I can make something.
Okay, well I'll tell you what, we better move on to something a little more productive if you want to toss out another grassroots corner.
Yeah, Jim Bennett is our grassroots coordinator. He's a board member with AFFT, the Americans for Fair Taxation, and fair tax volunteers often appear where we least expect them. That is the case with fair taxer Harold Redke, Pine Island, Minnesota. Harold found out that a political activist was coming to speak at a local church and didn't let the opportunity go to waste to get the fair tax brand out there quickly here. And I remember, Elaine, last week, a couple of weeks ago, I made a mistake. I said I got a call from a guy in Montana. It wasn't Montana. It was Harold in Minnesota, and he was looking for some fair tax gear.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, we got the Fair Tax Logo Store, fairtaxlogostore.org, and we emailed him a couple, like the comparison sheets. So quickly, Harold gathered up and generated his literature and a screen display. He's got a picture here of Harold's little table with his computer on it, and I don't know if he had a slideshow going on his computer, but anyways, thank you, Harold. He reports that people going to the event streamed past the table, but on the way out they started engaging. Harold says that he is not clear about when he first heard about the fair tax, but he recently remembers hearing Texas Senator Ted Cruz mention it. Well, that would be nice because Ted Cruz used to be a co-sponsor.
Yeah, of course, used to be. We need to go back to work on him.
Yeah. Of course, first we need a bill in the Senate.
That's true.
Unfortunately, we have to admit
he can't co-sponsor something that doesn't exist yet. Maybe we can get him to put it up.
So anyways, Harold took didn't wait. He's a self-starter. He got his information. He set up a table, and he was able to get some information out about the fair tax at this event. So that was great. We thank Harold.
Right.
And that's all it takes, folks. That's all it takes. The reason we bring up this grassroots is because it's really important. So if you have something to report about or you have questions, contact Jim at jim.bennett@fairtax.org. jim.bennett@fairtax.org. And that's our grassroots report for this week.
It is. And before we run out of time, we need to deal with this little deal from Claude. And I'm not about to try that last name, but he's in, says Decorah, Iowa. He's actually just asking for a list of websites where you can learn about the fair tax.
Yeah. He also talk about grassroots. I'm rereading the fair tax book, and I hope to crank up somewhat and so forth. He says he's going to buy more fair tax books and pass them out to people. That's what grassroots people do.
Excellent idea. Thank you, Claude.
So, websites. Well, obviously, there is the main website, the national website, fairtax.org. Lots of stuff on there. Lots of information. The 2 whiteboard videos are on there. They're about a minute long. They're very good. There's also frequently asked questions that you can go to. Just about any question about the fair tax has already been asked And the answers are there.
That's really the best place to go for information if
Yeah.
you want to educate yourself. Now, if once you have decided that the fair tax is a good idea and you want to help make it happen, the next step is
BigSolution.org.
there you go.
Yeah, that's kind of our activist site. That's where you can get involved and actually, help to get this done. So, BigSolution.org. That's a great website to get involved. So those two, get information at fairtax.org, get involved at BigSolution.org.
Well, they asked for a comprehensive list of all the fair tax websites. That's not something we really have at our disposal. We know that a lot of the states, Florida has flfairtax.org, and other states would have websites at their state, and you can find all those organizations through the fairtax.org, which is
That's
really
right.
the best place to go.
Yep.
And if you're on Facebook.
Yep. Yeah, if you're on Facebook, the main AFFT's main page is simply facebook.com/fairtax. Facebook.com/fairtax. We have a Facebook page there. There are a lot of Facebook fair tax related pages on Facebook. You just do a search and you'll find them. There's all kinds of them. Okay, and there's also fair tax friendly sites that you can find. So there's a lot there. And finally, there's our website.
Yes, fairtaxguys.com, where you can see archived versions of all. Just start talking, a little frog goes up in your throat. Archived versions of all of our video feeds, and some of the old podcasts as well are there.
Yep. So
Claude, thank you for your interest. I'm afraid we don't have the full comprehensive list, but those are the big places to go. Fairtax.org is the best place to go, is your best leaping off point. And then if there's something in, if Iowa has a state level website, I imagine they do.
They probably do. I think most states do.
I'd have to check that out. But
Yep.
Again, if you've got a question or a comment for us, thefairtaxguys@gmail.com is our email address. You can leave us a comment on our Facebook page as well. Okay?
Yep.
Now, we got about 20 minutes left in this program, so I'm going to give you a choice, Ron.
Okay.
Would you like me to throw criticisms at you, or would you like to talk about repatriation? Take your pick.
Let's do the criticisms first. We'll get to this later.
Hot dog. I've read about your fair tax, and that thing ain't never going to work.
All right. What we're talking about here is you're volunteering to help some fair tax leaders man an information booth, or you're just having a casual conversation with somebody, and this has happened. You're
More
at an
times than we can
information.
account this has happened.
You're at an information booth. You're handing out information. It could be, the palm cards like this. We have a sheet that compares the income tax, the flat tax, and the fair tax to each other in 3 columns and so forth. And you're handing out this information, given this short 30-second elevator speech, and the response is, it'll never work.
It'll never work,
Yeah.
or it'll never pass.
Yeah,
One of the
it'll
two.
never work. Well, those are two separate issues. But, this person just heard about it a minute ago, and suddenly they are the world's greatest expert in tax reform, and they're saying it'll never work. Actually, it is working. All right? It is working in certain states that have a sales tax and no income tax. It's working very well in those states. And it's also working well in terms of what happened in 2017, and that is reduction of unnecessary government regulations by the new administration and a lowering of the tax rates. We've seen what is happening with the economy. It's percolating. It's creating so many jobs. In fact, it's creating so many jobs that in some cases there aren't enough people to fill the jobs because they're working in some industries in some locations. So yeah, we know it's going to work. It's working in states. It's working.
Yeah, and if you really want to see it work, hang on about a year and a half. If we can get things going as they expect that they can in Alabama, they will have a fair tax modeled state level.
Yes.
Sales tax, replacing their state income tax, replacing the current state sales tax, replacing a lot of the county and local taxes as well, if I understand that properly.
Yep.
So we will see if it works. Of course, we got $20 million worth of research that says it works.
So your response, for somebody that just knee-jerk reaction, it'll never work. It is working.
Keep an eye on Alabama. We'll make that work as well.
So
now,
all right, what's next, Mr. Hotshot?
Your fair tax thing, it doesn't address the national debt.
That's true. That's true. It does not address the national debt because it's a revenue bill. It's not a spending bill. It is a bill that determines how Congress, how the federal government gets its money from the citizens. It does not address spending. That doesn't mean that, the spending and the national debt isn't a serious problem. Yeah, it is. We're all very concerned about that.
Yes.
But one thing at a time. The fair tax is a revenue bill. It does not address spending.
And since it does not address spending, it does not address spending priorities.
Yeah.
Therefore, it does not favor one side over the other as to what to spend it on. It does not advance the conservative agenda at the expense of the liberal one, or vice versa. It does not address any of that. It just simply raises the money, and then they can just continue to fight like they always do over how to spend it.
That's right.
But they don't have to fight over how to raise it.
And they don't have to waste their time coming up with 1,000 proposals to change the tax code, or I don't know. They're it looks like they're going to be, by the end of the 116th Congress, they could easily have 3,000 proposals to change the tax code.
Yes,
it's just nuts.
You don't have to define the municipal solid waste in the tax code with the fair tax. I love that.
So
but I'll tell you what.
All right,
this thing ain't going to raise enough money.
Oh well. So apparently you've already done your research on that, or you're just not sure. I mean,
Well, the income tax raises enough money.
Yeah.
Ask him that.
And of course, the income tax has a serious problem with evasion, So the income tax, is that raising enough money? The fair tax is very simple. It's a consumption tax, a sales tax, all right? When is the last time you saw something in the newspaper about the state sales tax not raising enough money, or something's wrong with the state sales tax? How many times do you see that? But how many times do you hear reports about the income tax or the IRS? Compare the two, okay? What do you mean it's not going to raise enough money?
But a lot of states have balanced budget amendments. They can't run deficits, which would work.
That's right.
But,
and 45 of the 50 states have a sales tax. Unfortunately, a lot of them also have an income tax and a fair tax. I'm sorry, a sales tax. Yes. I misspoke. Ooh.
Yeah, you can't have a fair tax and an income tax, because by definition, the fair tax has to, before it's completely and totally permanently implemented, the 16th Amendment has to be repealed. And as soon as that happens, an income tax is unconstitutional.
That's right, which is the way it should be.
Absolutely.
Okay. So yeah. All right. So
this fair tax is a rotten idea. People will cheat it.
Oh, yeah. People are not cheating on the current income tax, but they're going to cheat like heck on the sales tax. So, again, I asked the question, how many times have you seen in the newspaper or on the internet your state sales tax is suffering from cheating? All right, how many times have you seen that? I'll bet you've not seen one single report. Because how do you cheat on a sales tax? It's very difficult. You go into a store, you buy something, the sales tax is included in the price, it's there. You're not going to get out of the store until you pay for that item, including the sales tax. It's just that simple.
Now you've hit on a fact. The fair tax is actually included in the price. It's not tacked on at the cash register like most sales taxes that we know are.
Yeah. So there's not going to be massive cheating. In fact, I remember when we were out at Oklahoma State University, Jade was talking about this concept, and he said, there have been studies done that show the sales tax has something like 1.5% to 2% evasion rate. Very, very low. What is our current evasion rate for the income tax? Anybody know out there? Raise your hand. What is it? Okay.
About 21 or so percent.
Yeah. It's over 20%. It means 1 out of 5 people are not paying their fair share with the income tax. Don't you think that's a problem?
Or do it this way, 20 cents of every dollar owed is not collected.
Yeah, that's another way of looking at it.
There you go.
We have a huge problem with evasion with the current income tax, and yet with a consumption tax, with the fair tax, it'll be very, very small because it's a sales tax. How do you evade it? For one thing, it takes 2 people to conspire to evade the sales tax. It takes the seller and the buyer. They both have to be involved. Whereas with the income tax, that's you doing your, doing your 1040 and maybe not, writing down the right amount.
And since with the fair tax, the retailer who is collecting the tax is incentivized to collect it
That's
because
right.
they get to keep a little piece of it.
That's right.
So if they try to conspire to help someone evade paying the sales tax, they are taking money out of their own pocket. How many businesses do you think are going to do that?
So, and that reminds me of another criticism that I heard that I didn't put on the list there. All right. I mentioned this. Bob is absolutely right. The retailers get to keep 0.25% of what they collect and send on to the state sales tax organization. And that state gets to keep 0.25% of what they collect and send to the federal government as for their troubles. And somebody told me, "Oh, that's not enough. It needs to be a half a percent." Well, okay, maybe you're right. I
Okay,
don't know.
Mr. Economic Degree.
But that's something that will be handled as the fair tax is discussed in Congress. That's not something that's going to totally disqualify it. No.
Yeah.
All right. So maybe that is an issue, but that's something that can be
that
handled
really
in
drives me nuts. The fair tax is no good because people will cheat it.
Yeah. It's just how do you
And
do
it replaces the income tax, the most cheated on tax in the entire existence of mankind.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, mercy.
Yeah.
Oh, I got time to hit you with a couple other ones.
Okay.
This fair tax is no good. It benefits the rich. It's regressive and hurts the poor.
Oh yeah, okay. Those two usually go together. All right. Yeah, it's regressive. It hurts the poor and it benefits the rich. No, actually, it's the exact opposite. Okay, because this is not your father's sales tax. All right. This is not a normal sales tax. This is a highly qualified sales tax.
Oh.
It
I
involves.
thought you were going to say an abnormal sales tax. You know.
The fair tax, as you know, if you've listened to Fair Tax Power Radio before, it has a feature called the prebate. All right, and it's true. Without the prebate, the fair tax would be a failure. No question about it. The prebate is technically known as the family consumption allowance, and it allows family. It gives them a refund at the beginning of the month. Hence the nickname prebate. And it's strictly based on the size of the household. So, and I just happen to have
poverty level varies with household size.
yeah. So, according to Health and Human Services, a family of four, a very typical mom and dad and 2 kids, all right, their average income, their poverty level income is $33,820. Where does that figure come from? Health and Human Services, all right, a federal agency. It's not something the fair tax people just pulled out of the air by themselves. It comes from the federal agency. So, if this under the fair tax, if this family is spending that amount on food, clothing, shelter, and so forth, in other words, the basic necessities, what it requires just to stay alive, okay, then they're going to be rebated the fair tax they spend on that much. Well, 23% of that is 7,779 divided by 12. You get 648. All right, that family of four, or any family of four, is going to get the prebate of $648, and it's not an entitlement. It makes sure that they are rendered tax-free up to the poverty level.
As you read my mind, I was going to say, that sounds like a new entitlement. Should be means tested.
$648 is not enough to live on. You can't maintain a family of four on $648 a month.
That is
Maybe when my wife and I were first married, but not now.
That's a tax refund. You're getting back your own money. You're not getting somebody else's money. You're
That's
getting
right.
back your own money that was collected from you that you don't owe. Yes, because you do not owe a dime of fair tax until your spending rises above the poverty level for your household size. Since it's totally impractical to keep track of how much everybody spends, they're just going to assume that you're going to collect the tax from $1, assume that you'll spend your basic necessities before you spend on luxuries, and you get back the tax you pay on your spending up to the poverty level. So therefore, you don't take a dime out of your own pocket until your spending exceeds the poverty level. And if you spend just above the poverty level, what you take out of your own pocket is like a 1 or 2% effective tax rate at that rate.
Yeah.
So you don't pay the full 23% unless you're spending millions of dollars.
Now, speaking of millions of dollars,
Okay.
all right, because of the wealth envy thing that goes around this country, all right, well, the rich is going to benefit by this. Actually, everybody's going to benefit by the fair tax. Everybody is. But the rich will benefit not as much, all right? Because for one thing, the more you spend, as Bob has been explaining, the more you spend above the poverty level, and let's say you're a family of 4 that's not just getting by, but you are a family of means, you have a lot of income, okay? Then you're going to have more disposable, more spendable cash, and the more you spend above the poverty level, the higher your effective tax rate is.
And
so
you can't hide from it. There are no exemptions, there are no exceptions, there are no loopholes. If you buy something, new goods or services at retail, you pay the tax, period.
Yep. So, yeah, that's right. So the fair tax with the prebate, all right, one, protects the people that most need the help, those people living right at the poverty level, and 2, it ensures that everybody pays their fair share. And the more you have in disposable cash, the higher your effective tax rate will be. And it does it without a lot of nonsense by Congress, because those 1,000 or so proposals to the tax code, that's the nonsense we have to put up with now. There'll be none of that with the fair tax. The fair tax is the fair tax. That's it. It's done. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
if they change the rate, then it's changed on everybody. You can't pick winners and losers and give your friends tax breaks and give your enemies tax penalties and stuff like that. The fair tax, and you'll see on your receipt how much fair tax. You will see the cost of government every time you buy something.
Yep.
And hopefully that might address it's not raising enough money because the government's spending too much. Maybe they need to cut back on that a little bit.
And there are people in Congress that are terrified by that concept.
Absolutely. Well, that's it. Well, we're running. You handle that pretty well, Kimosabe. That was pretty good.
I have heard this before.
You've had lots of well, you've also heard of the logo store before, have you not?
Okay. All right. Okay, fairtaxlogostore.org. Fairtaxlogostore.org. All right. I don't think they have ceramic mugs because they have trouble shipping them, but they do have travel mugs and so forth.
Yes. This one's full of cheer wine.
They have these campaign buttons, which you can. My wife always has one of these, at least one of these, on the strap of her purse. You can pin it to your shirt. You can buy a shirt. You can get a hat. You can get a jacket. You can get a nice tote bag like this. There's all kinds of things. There's pens, and you can get these information cards, these palm cards, and keep some of these, with you, so that, for one thing, whenever we go out to dinner and we sign the check, we always put one of these in. This is the tip along with the tip. Okay.
You know what I do with those things?
What's that?
When I get spam mail, snail mail, and they get one of those little business return envelopes.
Oh yeah.
I slip one of those in there and send it back to them.
Oh yeah, Elaine loves doing that. My wife she's got a big grin on her face, and she saves up those envelopes, and she has a get even session where she sends these things back.
If you're going to send me your spam, I'm going to make you pay for this.
But as I mentioned before, in the pocket of my fair tax shirt, all right, you can save some of these. And my congressman does these. He keeps these things in his shirt pocket. So when somebody asks him about the fair tax, he has these handy with him. Yep.
And that's, if you want to know how much your prebate's going to be based on your household size, that's printed in very small letters on the back.
Very basic information about the fair tax on one side, the prebate schedule on the back side. And when the new year comes, we'll update the prebate schedule because we'll get new figures from Health and Human Services. All right.
Indeed.
So, okay. Well, we had this thing on repatriation. We'll save that till the next time.
Save that for a next episode.
There's some good stuff in here.
Yes, it is. Right. We are slap out of time. We do have time to remind everyone again of our email address, thefairtaxguys@gmail.com. Remind everyone that we do have a Facebook page, Facebook Fair Tax Guys. You can leave us questions and comments there. And we certainly do appreciate your feedback. Again, appreciate you sharing these videos, telling your family and friends about Fair Tax Power Radio, fairtaxguys.com, where you can go to see all of the old versions of things. And really, you need to go there and back up a couple of weeks and look at the one about money walks. That's one of the coolest episodes of Fair Tax Power Radio we've done here.
Yeah.
So you need to check that out.
I like the one where you had lived under the fair tax all your life, and then this slick congressman came along and wanted to convince you that the income tax.
I fixed his wagon.
Yes, you did. I'm still stinging from that.
Indeed. Well, that's going to wrap up this edition of Fair Tax Power Radio. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Ron Molero.
The Fair Tax Guys reminding you that the fair tax is the only truly fair tax, and once you understand it,
You'll demand it.
So tell me, how could I pay less taxes?
Less.
Yeah, I'm trying to get ahead, so how can I pay less?
Well, I suppose you could pay less taxes by earning less money, or you could give to charity.
How is that going to help?
Actually, I'm not supposed to tell you this, but if you know the right people, okay, or if you have a really good lawyer, you can usually get around the big ones.
If I may, under the fair tax, to pay less taxes, you would simply consume less. You would control how much you pay and when you pay your taxes simply by choosing what you purchase and when you purchase something.
So I could stay focused and get ahead.
Exactly.